I texted my son is in the emergency room and my wife replied, I'm busy with my parents having a barbecue. Can't leave right now? Last Saturday started like any normal weekend. My 12-year-old Jake was at his friend Connor's house working on some school project, and my wife Lisa had driven an hour away to her parents' place for their monthly family barbecue thing. I was home cleaning the garage when my phone rang around 2 p.m. It was Connor's mom, Sarah, and she sounded panicked. She said Jake had fallen off their trampoline and hit his head pretty hard on the metal frame. He was conscious but dizzy and throwing up. I dropped everything and raced over there in my old pickup truck. When I saw Jake sitting on their couch holding a bag of frozen peas to his forehead, my heart stopped. There was blood on his shirt and he looked so pale and confused. Sarah had already called 911 and the paramedics said we needed to get him to the hospital immediately for a head injury evaluation. They were worried about a concussion or worse. I followed the ambulance to Regional Medical Center, texting Lisa from the parking lot while they wheeled Jake inside. My hands were shaking as I typed, Jake hurt his head bad. At emergency room now. Come quick. Her response came back 5 minutes later while I was filling out paperwork. Oh no, but I'm busy with my parents having a barbecue. Can't leave right now. How bad is it really? I stared at my phone for a full minute. Our son was getting a CT scan to check for brain bleeding and she was asking if she could finish eating potato salad first. I called her immediately. She picked up and I could hear her dad laughing in the background and music playing. I told her Jake might have a serious head injury and that I needed her here now. Lisa said she'd driven an hour to get there and her whole family was together for the first time in months. She asked if Jake was actually dying or just being dramatic like kids do when they get hurt. That's when I heard her mom in the background saying, tell him we'll pray for the boy, but you can't miss Aunt Carol's famous ribs. Lisa actually agreed with her and said she'd come by later if Jake was still there. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the next 4 hours, I sat alone in that horrible waiting room while doctors ran tests on my kid. Jake kept asking where mom was, and I didn't know what to tell him. The CT scan showed a mild concussion but no bleeding. The doctor said Jake was lucky but needed to be watched closely for the next 24 hours. Any changes in his behavior or more vomiting meant we'd have to come back immediately. Around 7 p.m., Jake finally got discharged with a stack of instructions about concussion care. As we walked to the parking lot, he asked again why mom wasn't there. I told him she got stuck in traffic, which was a lie, but what else could I say? We stopped at the pharmacy to get his pain medicine, then went through a drive-thru to get him some soup since he was finally hungry again. The whole time, my phone stayed off. When we got home around 8 p.m., Lisa's car was in the driveway. She was in the living room watching TV like nothing had happened. She jumped up when she saw Jake's bandaged forehead and started fussing over him. Jake told her all about the hospital and the scary machines, and Lisa acted like she'd been worried sick all day. She kept saying how sorry she was that she missed everything because of traffic and car trouble. That night after Jake went to bed, I told Lisa I knew exactly where she'd been all day. She got defensive and said her family only gets together once a month, and that I was being unfair expecting her to drop everything for a minor bump on the head. I showed her the discharge papers listing all the serious things we had to watch for. Explained how scared I was sitting alone wondering if our son had permanent brain damage. She just rolled her eyes and said I was being overdramatic. 2 weeks later, Jake was completely fine, but something in me had changed. I realized that when it really mattered, when our kid needed both his parents, Lisa chose barbecue ribs over being there. I started noticing other things. How she'd schedule her nails during his soccer games. How she'd go shopping with friends instead of helping with his science fair project. How her social life always seemed more important than family stuff. Jake never found out his mom chose a party over his emergency room visit, but I'll never forget sitting alone in that waiting room wondering if my wife even cared that our son might have a serious brain injury. That was 6 months ago. Last week, Lisa got served with divorce papers. She seemed shocked and asked what she'd done wrong. I just handed her a copy of that text message from the hospital day. She finally understood.